Welcome, friends. Welcome to another edition of Doorway to Wellness. I'm your host for today's episode. I'm Dr. David Kamnitzer. Most people just call me Dr. David. And I'm very excited about today's show. In fact, I'm so excited about today's show that we made it a whole hour. And because we're talking about a topic that's really dear to my heart. We're going to be talking about empowering mothers. I've been in private practice as a holistic doctor for over 26 years, and some of the greatest joys that I've had in practice have been in empowering mothers, because I found that when mothers are empowered, families heal, children heal, husbands heal. And when families heal, communities start to heal. So it's a topic that's really dear to my heart. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to allow you to eavesdrop on a conversation I'm going to be having with two mothers. One is the mother of a 6-year-old daughter, and another one is very, very pregnant with a little boy. And we're just going to find out what it's like to be a mom, or what it's like to be knowing that you're going to be a mom in today's world. What are their hopes? What are their deepest desires? The ones that maybe they don't even talk about or let themselves even know. What are their fears? What are their worries? What are their concerns? What are their frustrations? Because if we can really understand what's really going on with mothers, it's a lot easier to really take a deep look at what's really needed and wanted to empower mothers, and then to have it have that ripple effect I was talking about earlier. So in a minute, I'm just going to turn and be with my friends here tonight, who are also the mothers and the mothers-to-be. So I want to just turn and welcome my guest tonight, Lori Fields. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Dr. David.
Okay. It's just going to be us talking. Just going to be us talking. There's water over there. Make yourself comfortable. And Lori, do you want to just talk to me just so the viewers know just a little bit about yourself and about yourself as a mom?
Well, I am currently a stay-at-home mom. I was a teacher for special education children for 13 years before I had my daughter, and decided to stay home with her to be close to her, because when she was born, she was the most amazing person I've ever laid my eyes on, and my life changed forever to be a wonderful mother for this amazing little girl.
What's her name?
Raven Moon.
Mm. Was it a difficult decision for you and your husband to have you choose to be a full-time stay-at-home mom, or was it kind of a no-brainer, or what was that like to, obviously there were priorities, there were trade-offs. What was that like, the decision to, as a family, as a couple, what was that like?
At first, we looked at finances. We were a little concerned about how we were going to be able to pay mortgage on our new home. But it became pretty evident right away that we would be happiest with me at home with Raven, to give her the best care, because the daycare situation was, she's gone all day and we're gone all day, and we feel really disconnected from our family. And to be home and be a part of her life and raise her properly was just a no-brainer. So since that moment when she was 2, we've been very happy with our decision.
I know there are many mothers that would like to make that decision but feel like they can't.
True.
Yeah.
That's true. We are fortunate to have saved up enough to have paid off a lot of debt before we decided to quit my job and stay with Raven. But now that I'm home with her, I can't imagine going back. I don't know if I would go back until maybe she's out of school, if I decided to then. But it's great
to have that freedom. I mean, there's some mothers that don't want that. There's some mothers that want that and can't have that. Some mothers that do want it and are able to have it, and I'm glad for you that you want it and you're having it.
Thank you. Yes, it's a lot of joy.
All right. Hi, Doris.
Hi, Dr. David.
Doris, and hello to this budding young man right there is yet to be named, yes?
Yes, yet to be
Okay.
named.
So just to orient the viewers a little bit, you found out at what point that it was a boy?
Actually, it was a funny story. When I was about 16 weeks, that's the earliest time when you can find out if it's a girl or boy. And the doctor had told me it was a girl. And then so I was getting ready for a girl until the 24th week. My doctor, I went in for an ultrasound. They told me, oh, it's actually a boy. And I was like, oh, I had a name. I was buying girls' clothes. So, yeah, it was a big surprise that it was a boy, even though I had no preference. But the thing was, I was prepared, mentally prepared for a girl. But I'm more than happy I'm having a boy.
Now, you recently quit your job. Yes?
Not quite.
Not yet?
Not yet. End of this month, I will be leaving, yes. And then I should be having the baby mid-July. The doctor said July 18th, so we will see.
Now, are you currently living with your parents?
I am currently living with my parents. Actually, before I got pregnant, I was still in school at Foothill College, finishing up my AA degree, or to transfer to university. So when I found out I was pregnant, it was a whole change of course of action for my school, but I'm still going to finish. It's just a little setback a little bit.
Now you're in a new school, the
Yes,
school of life.
School of life, exactly.
How do you feel about that huge
I feel
change?
In the beginning, I thought my life was going to change. I'm not sure. I was very nervous, didn't know what to expect. But then now I feel very much excited that the universe kind of entrusted me with the baby, because I really feel like that even though my life was going down this road of get school done, get a job, do this, do that, what society tells you, I feel like this is something that was supposed to happen.
Did it motivate you to do some deeper healing?
Oh, yes.
Of yourself, so that you would be able to create more of a healing, healthy space for your child?
Oh, definitely. That's one of the biggest things I'm very grateful about having a child, is that I'm just working on myself, getting prepared for the child by getting ready, by spiritually getting more grown, I guess you can say, and just getting like kind of paying off my debts in all ways, and just getting ready for the child, but by getting myself prepared.
Did you alter your diet?
Oh, before I was pregnant, the funny thing was I was actually on a really nice, good diet. But now that I am pregnant, I'm more into like what is the most like natural way of eating, and yeah, I definitely looked into nutrition a lot more, definitely.
Okay. So I have children, but they're older. 2 boys, 25 and 22. And, you know, if I imagine thinking about being a parent today, in today's world, I think I would have to think many times about it. Partially because of the economic pressures of today, and partially because it's such an incredibly, it's such an incredibly complex world that we would be bringing a child into today. You know, the idea of that you're done when they're 18 is totally out the window now. I mean, the amount of time that it takes for a human being to mature and to be able to really be a psychologically and spiritually adult person is not 18 anymore. It's a lot closer to 30. And so I know I would have to think long and hard about bringing a child into the world these days, and yet, you know, there's the biological imperative, there's the wanting to contribute to future generations as well. So I can appreciate it's not an easy decision. So let's see if we can go a little bit deeper. So just want to open it up. Whoever wants to take this is, if you'd be willing to talk to me about it, is what are some of your biggest fears and concerns and worries in relation to being a mother, or in relation to thinking about being a mother? Just honestly, like at 3 in the morning when nobody's around and it's just you and the pillow. What are some of your deepest fears and worries and concerns about being a mother?
I can start off. There's many worries and concerns just because I am in this young generation, I can say, and the things I see with behaviors.
Can you be specific?
Just peer pressure is one, and just seeing how kids are just acting not their age, or just doing things that are not healthy. Or
But can you really be specific?
Okay, so
like what are you like? Let's get down. Like what are you
Okay.
really concerned about? What are you really afraid of?
Some of the things. Okay, so one of the things is definitely health. As I see the way people eat these days, especially people in my generation, they don't really. They're not really educated on what to eat. As in, they can just go fast food every day and they don't mind. Also, just the way the food is these days, the way it's so, I guess you can say, modified, and we don't really know what's in it. It kind
So
of
your
scares
concern
me.
is that your child would end up eating that way?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
and that's why I'm really concerned during my pregnancy of what to eat. Like I try to get everything, to my knowledge, the most natural, most organic, or whatever. But I'm just kind of afraid of the future, what that brings,
Okay.
how the food's going to be.
Okay.
That's definitely one
Let's
thing.
try to stay really focused in this question
Mm-hmm.
as specifically as you can. About 3 in the morning, nobody's around. Excuse me, you're all alone. You're a mother, you know you're going to be a mother. What are your worst deep down fears? What are your deepest worries? Deepest fears, worries, and concerns.
I know I can say it's all about protection. You want to protect your child from all dangers, no matter what they are.
You do.
Whether I do.
Right.
Whether there's something that I do have control over or that I don't have control over. And now that Raven's a little older and she's able to communicate with me, and she's more aware of media, and how where I struggle at 3 in the morning is to protect her from this incredibly violent society that's mirrored in TV and commercials and TV shows, as if it's completely acceptable to have people arguing or using foul language or physically fighting or shooting, and it's looked at as humorous or entertaining. And when I look at my daughter, who I still see as this pure, angelic creature, I think one day that innocence is going to be gone because of her surroundings, and it's almost impossible to escape, to not be exposed to these sort of violences. And even along the lines of food, the media shows these silly commercials with cartoon characters about a cereal, when the cereal is all genetically modified and toxic with blue 40 and whatever. And it's hard for me as a mom, and I worry and I struggle and I get anxious at times over how do I block out these violent images and messages and protect her in her innocence and in her health. That's my 3 a.m. pillow worry.
It's a tough, excuse me again, it's a tough call as children are growing up. It's a tough call for when you want to just, as you're suggesting, which is buffer and protect and preserve that kind of virginity, that kind of pristine innocence. And at what point that becomes counterproductive and you're just going to end up with a rebellious teenager who wants to live a little bit. And so if I could maybe offer some advice from someone that's been down the road a little bit, would
Sure.
that be okay?
Oh, please.
Is I think you're thinking about it overly simplistically. I think you're thinking about it kind of in an either or way. I think you're thinking about it either I just throw her to the wolves or I buffer her.
Well, it's more like I don't know how to protect her, yet let her accept and grow that part of my motherhood. I haven't.
Right. But I'm saying that there are options. You could, as she gets older, you could express your concerns. You could, as she gets older, you could say, let's watch these shows together this morning because I want to talk to you about what I see when I see the commercials. So I'm just like a possibility here.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe there's more options than just, oh, I just throw her out there or I completely buffer her. And it's a process, and it's very delicate because on one hand, you want to be a good steward of your office of parenthood, and you don't want to needlessly expose someone to something that's overwhelming. But on the other hand, you don't want to do that in a way where you forget that this is a strong soul who has her own timetable and at some level is choosing to be here now and is probably a lot more resilient than you think. And to some extent, you could be projecting some of your own unfinished business in your own childhood. So I have a lot of appreciation for what you're talking about, and I really want to honor you for the fact that you're such a big person, that you're conscious enough that you have these questions and that you're willing to be transparent about the fact that you have these questions and that you're willing to be transparent about your process here on television. It's, that level of consciousness and caring, I think, bodes really well for your daughter. One other thought I would say is that it's not like you have to have it perfectly all together and then make a presentation to her.
Mm-hmm.
You can be yourself and you can be in your own process with your daughter. And being yourself and being in your own process with your daughter will teach your daughter something that no amount of concepts can teach her. In other words, what you're being and the way you're living and how you're showing up authentically with her and the love you have for her, that may turn out to be the best sword you've got.
Thank you.
Sure. Anything you want to say about, else you'd like to say about,
What my concerns are?
yeah, when you're really just like your 3 a.m. moments?
One of my biggest concerns is having my child to be spiritually equipped in a way, because I believe, for me personally, just growing in my spirituality, I was able to overcome things and challenges and conflicts that was thrown at me, just blocks in my road. And I feel like even though I can never always be there for my child in every moment of his life, if I'm able to equip him spiritually with like truth and how this world is not really, it's kind of an illusion, if I can say, then I feel like he's able to overcome anything that comes his way. If he is spiritually strong or within, he's very strong.
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
When I look back on my childhood
Mm-hmm.
and my adolescence, and I look at what helped me, looking back, what helped me to be spiritually strong,
Mm-hmm.
the thing that helped me the most was being in the presence of spiritually strong people.
Definitely.
By far. I mean, not even close. There's no close second to that. I mean, that would be first, second, and third.
Mm-hmm.
Being in the presence of a spiritually awake human being by far was the most empowering thing to equip me to be spiritually strong. So again, if you're open to some coaching, I would say if you are serious about that,
Mm-hmm.
that the best thing you can do is, number one, become spiritually strong yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and number two, become an active part of a functioning community of spiritually committed human beings that can be an extended family for your son. I did not have a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
as a child or as a teenager, and let me just say that my life would have flowed in probably an easier way if I had had that, much easier way. And I think sometimes we look for some formula when actually it's just right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just right here. And, you know, depth psychologists over the last 100 years have mapped out in great detail how children's sense of selves develop, especially during the first 4 to 6 years of life. And we pretty much can state as a fact now that the quality of what's called the holding environment for the embryo, the fetus, the infant, and the toddler has an enormous impact on how that individual experiences themselves and other people in their world. And part of the holding environment is obviously physical things, like making sure the child has good food and that the child is warm and touched and cared for and fed and kept clean and isn't exposed to terrible noises and sounds. So there's a physical aspect to this holding environment, but there are also non-physical aspects to the holding environment. Are you really present with the child? Do you really want the child? Is the child welcome? Does the child experience being a source of joy and pleasure to you or a burden? Is a child being responded to authentically in a way that is meeting their real needs and is appropriate? So many things. And so I think just becoming more aware of yourself as a person and continuing to do the healing that you guys are doing in relation to what it was like when you were a child. And that's work that is courageous work, because I don't know about you, but my parents didn't have the benefit that I had of a lot of spiritual training, a lot of spiritual teachers, a lot of spiritual practice. My parents grew up in a very different time. And so they had a lot of unfinished business from their own childhood that they brought into being a parent with me. And so it can be very motivating to really want to do some deep inner work so that you don't, what I call, propagate the chain of pain from one generation to the next. And I think one of the blessings of being a parent is that by giving unconditional love to your baby and your child, it almost creates a resonance with that part of your own consciousness that's still in need of healing, that little inner child in you. And there's some kind of magic that can happen there. So fears, worries, concerns, any other big ones? Any other really big fears and worries and concerns as a mother or a mother-to-be?
have another environmental concern, I suppose, is now that my daughter has entered kindergarten, finding a well-rounded school where they offer more than just math and reading, really exposing our kids to a very well-rounded education of art and music. And I even got an email today about how the school system's short hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to fund the PE teacher and the music teacher. And for me right now, that's been on my mind a lot, is how am I going to expose my daughter if it means that she's not getting it in her school day, that after school I need to find a good avenue for music, movement, working together as a team with people versus competition. And I'm not too sure where to go with that, although I have her in sports and singing and swimming.
Have you considered an option where, sort of like a partial homeschooling option, where some of the subjects where you feel qualified to give her what she needs, you would do at home, and then you could plug in to the school for certain academics and social opportunities that you're not able to provide her? Have you considered some kind of customized hybrid kind of arrangement?
I feel I'm doing that now, but she is in the school system for the school day, not at home for any part of the school day. But when she does get home, having been a teacher, I do have some tricks in my bag where I feel like she could use some more well-rounding. We work at home on those areas.
Right, I understand. I just wondered if you'd considered the option I'm presenting.
No,
where you would...
because of the social aspect.
Okay.
She's my only child, and she would be disconnected from other children unless I had invited or somehow created a way to get other children in the program. But that's my concern about that.
And I think one of the things that'll happen, because I think you're not the only person with that concern, is I think that as we rethink what education is, and we rethink what learning is, and we reconsider what the role of the public school is, and really get real about the fact that education is much more of a partnership between the parents and the school and the children, and we, stop trying to pretend that the public schools or even the private schools can do it all. I think when we get out of denial about that and we go, okay, how can we make this partnership great for our kids? And tap into the community resources that are way beyond the resources available in the formal school itself. If we start thinking about the community as the school, I think if we shift our paradigm to the community as the school, it opens up a whole other set of possibilities and a whole other set of questions that I think may be right on track. But again, I'm really glad that you're, there's this old expression, the call compels the answer. The questions you're asking, the things you're thinking about are really powerful questions. And one of the things I think that's really good about a show like this is it gives the viewer kind of psychic permission to open up to the possibility that, hey, maybe there are a lot of people thinking these thoughts at 3 in the morning. And maybe I'm not alone. And maybe there's a way for us to communicate. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Doris, how about you? Other fears, worries, and concerns at your 3 in the morning moments?
Being in the right community was one of them, in education as well. I want to provide him in a community where he can learn and be raised a proper way, in a way that he'd be beneficial to a society or a community. So definitely trying to figure out who am I gonna put him around. As in, even my family, I wonder who I'm gonna expose him to my family, because there's some family members that I would say wouldn't be the best role model, you can say. So just having my child around people, I believe, like you said, spiritually strong, and just the good role models.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I know that this world, he's going to be exposed to so much. So thinking about when is a good time to expose him to things, or just being that protecting little,
Right.
yeah. But
Like, and I think timing is really important there, but also I want to reinforce this idea that I think one of the limitations in our thinking is that we've been thinking individual, family, the general world. And I just want to suggest as a possibility, what if there were other dynamics that were possible? What if there was you as an individual? What if there was your nuclear family? But what if you were willing and able to take responsibility for establishing this next dynamic that we could call maybe conscious extended family, conscious community? To me, that would make the interface with society in general much more fruitful. It would be like the difference between trying to drive a car and only having 3 forward gears. It'd be a lot easier and smoother ride if you had 4 or 5 forward gears, and you could just kind of go like that. You know, and if you would think about it and you would say, okay, if I'm going to give myself the next few months to focus on consciously creating a nurturing, empowering, extended family / community that can act as a dynamic that's between the nuclear family and society in general. You know, this idea is not a new idea. This idea of consciously choosing your extended family. That was the original idea behind a family selecting a church or a temple, and it embodies that idea. I mean, a lot of it's gotten watered down and lost and adulterated, but there was a real idea there. And if you can capture the essence of the real idea there without getting stuck, again, I look back in my life, a lot of what I'm sharing with you comes from my own personal wounds that I've had to heal. Is I had none of that. I had absolutely none of that. I was born into Western European nuclear family, no extended family, no aunts, no uncles, no grandparents around. I didn't feel held by that dynamic at all. And again, I think my life would have unfolded in a less brutal way if I had had that. And I think in any time in society, that's a useful thing to have, but especially now. And I'll tell you why I say that. Because we are coming to the end of an entire cultural era. We're coming to an end of an overly patriarchally dominated several hundred-year period where all the structures in society that were a reflection of and an expression of that mind that are no longer supporting life are dying. They're breaking down. And we're going through tremendous dying pains as a culture. And what's generally considered to be the social standard of culture and manners and all of that has become very debased. And because that's the water we're swimming in culturally, to me, it just speaks to the value of consciously establishing this dynamic that's between your nuclear family and society at large. I would say instead of fighting society at large, consciously create this this dynamic that is between society at large and your nuclear family, that's an extended family community that you feel proud of, that you would leave your kids with, that you would be willing to take their kids, that you can contribute to, that you can be contributed by. And this is not going to happen by default. This is something you have to will. You have to be committed to creating it. But you won't be the only one who's willing to be committed to creating it if you guys would step out and take a stand that you're committed to creating it. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the intentions behind this particular episode, is to have a powerful conversation like this that is, on one hand, an intimate conversation, but on the other hand, it's publicly transparent. And so part of the intention behind that conversation and the nature of this conversation is for people who have similar priorities and values to be inspired to stand up and be counted and to be able to find each other and to make themselves supportable. Because one of the things that I'm sure you're either learning the easy way or the hard way is, because it's in our face now because of all the factors I've described, is that if you don't take responsibility for establishing appropriate boundaries, it's not a pretty picture. And so, you know, that principle applies to yourself as an individual, also applies to yourself in your office of parenthood, this issue and concern you have about boundaries. But then it also can come into play in this idea that I'm suggesting, that this consciously created spiritual community, for lack of a better word, becomes kind of like a psychic boundary for your children. Not to mention a functional boundary as well. You know, I mean, functionally, imagine having 7 families you feel comfortable leaving your kids with, so you and your husband can get away for 3 days and have a quality time to reconnect and renew without being obsessed with how your kids are being cared for. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, the ancient Chinese understood that the hexagram in the I Ching for crisis was the same hexagram for opportunity. And so as an entrepreneur myself, I'm always thinking, whenever there's a breakdown, whether it's a personal breakdown, a family breakdown, a business breakdown, a cultural breakdown, I'm always asking myself, what's the opportunity here? Not as a way to avoid being real with my emotions and my thoughts and my body sensations, and I still want to face the problems head on. But then I want to get into the space of, okay, what's the opportunity here? And you know, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the myth of the phoenix. Are you guys? Mm-hmm. You know, out of the ashes rises the phoenix. Right. You know, and I see that myth very apropos these days, vis-a-vis the idea I shared earlier about, as a civilization and a culture, we're at the end of this cycle where there's this massive breakdown. I mean, everywhere you look, healthcare, education, religion, medicine, politics, economics, everywhere you look, there's breakdowns. Why? Why? Because the ideas, the paradigms, and the institutions and the structures were all a reflection of and an expression of this overly patriarchal dominance. And now we're moving into a phase where life is asking us to honor the feminine principle of caring and compassion and nurturing and cooperation and the arts and family and the earth and all of this. And people that are sensitive to what's happening and people that can embrace the possibilities of the waxing feminine energy while at the same time being open to honoring the true masculine. You know, not the distorted, bastardized, violent masculine, but to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. That there's something to be said for real masculine energy, stability, steadfastness, purpose, will, action, commitment. And in fact, it goes perfectly with real feminine energy because, and we both, you know, all males and females have masculine and feminine energy. It's important to understand. So we all have this part of us that is this very fluid, dynamic, adaptable, dynamic, rhythmic being. But then there's this part of us that's like, no, these are the boundaries. This is what we're about. This is the purpose. And I think a lot of what we're going through as a culture is separating the baby from the bathwater and really getting clear on what's the essence of masculine energy and what's the essence of feminine energy and what are the ways that they've been distorted. And to me, a really big thing that's happening on the planet right now that's a breakdown but also an opportunity is the whole male-female game that's going on the planet. And so many thoughtful men and women are looking at their male-female relationships and they're saying at 3 a.m, they're saying, is that all there is? You know, and even though they might maybe feel a little guilty or feel a little ashamed because of whatever they're dealing with, a lot of men and women are saying, hey, there's got to be more. There's got to be more. But again, you know, to tap into that moreness, there has to be a lot of that separating the baby from the bathwater that we talked about. And, you know, if I were going to be a parent now, for example, that's one of the things I would be sensitive to, being a parent, that, okay, I'm bringing a child into the world where the whole man-woman game is going to be reevaluated. I mean, think about it. Imagine we could snap our fingers and it's 20 years down the road, and let's say the economic conditions have changed to the point where a woman doesn't need to be married to a man in order to ensure financial security for her children anymore. That would be a game changer. If the choices about how men and women related to each other were uncoupled from historic economic necessity, for example, that one idea would be an absolute total game changer. Just imagine being a woman, knowing you were at total choice about how and when you related with a man that was completely independent of economic necessity. Now take that one idea and be open to the idea that maybe there are hundreds of ideas like that, that we're like not even thinking of because like we're so in it. We're like so in it from like hundreds of years of it just being that way. And I would think about the fact that I'm bringing a child into the world where the whole male-female conversation, where the whole sexuality conversation is going to be uncoupled from economic necessity and from social status and standing. Imagine a world where it's totally okay to be a parent and not necessarily have the traditional marriage. I mean, there's so many interesting questions and so many interesting possibilities if you just take the blinders off a little bit. And so these are some of the things that I would be thinking about, and just being with my children in such a way that I wasn't inadvertently closing their mind. So let's shift gears a little bit and focus on healthcare. What has been your experience as a mother, or what are your thoughts about what it will be like to be a mother in today's world, wanting to be responsible for yourself and your family in empowering their health? What have been your perceived options in that area, and have you been satisfied with them?
Well, I remember as a kid, when you have an ailment of some kind, whether it's a scratch or a virus, we were so accustomed to just taking what was provided by the doctor or over the counter as medicine that was going to heal us. And now, generations later, and becoming a mom myself and learning a little bit more that might not necessarily be the best medicine, that I've wanted to explore something different. But what I'm finding is it's not easy to find. It took until I met you that I learned a little bit more about essential oils. And with my own daughter, after 3 visits to her pediatrician and being sent back with a different medicine each time for her eczema, I decided, why am I not trying these oils? What are these oils? Maybe they actually work. We've tried everything else. She's in pain. Let's just go for it. And went with a Roman chamomile. And lo and behold, the next day it was nearly gone. She wasn't complaining about the pain. It wasn't keeping her up at night. And I thought, why doesn't everybody know about this? This is incredibly powerful information. There's something else out there that can empower us in healing anyone, everyone, our children. And for me, that's my concern, and I would like some way. I've been in my own head hoping and wondering how I can better others with this knowledge, and I also think about how we could let more people know, and that this aren't your medicine cabinet as it currently may be isn't your only option. And using these oils for us has worked wonders for so many different ailments, and I feel so much confidence in it because I know they're pure. I see them as something that Mother Earth has always had for us, that we've either ignored or has been so tainted or changed that it's no longer what it is. And now I see these oils as these pure Mother Earth given medicines that really work. And I feel so much confidence and happiness knowing that what I'm putting on my daughter or having her take isn't going to harm her any further. It's actually just going to heal. And I want to know more about that. I want to know what else is out there that I don't yet know.
But you can appreciate the depth of the conditioning if you think about yourself. You had the oils at home, and you still didn't go to it first.
No.
So you can see the depth of the marketing plan. You can see the depth of the blinders. You can have compassion for the bridge that you're going to be building with other people. And I'm glad you're open to the idea that these marvelous oils are just one tool of an enormous variety of available tools and techniques and structures that, in my experience, being a holistic doctor for over 26 years, 80 to 90% of the time, these natural methods can handle things. And the beauty is the 10 or 20% of the time that it can't, and traditional Western medicine of drugs and surgery can help. The beauty is that that's empowering the medical doctors because that's what they're there to do. And they're frustrated that 80 to 90% of the people they see, they know deep down they can't help. And this is why I'm so excited about the idea of that there doesn't have to be any us versus them going on, that natural healing can stand on its own, right, and that it can partner with other kinds of healthcare practices. So Doris, for you, what do you think about when you think about being a mother and interfacing with the current healthcare reality?
That actually has been a big concern of mine lately because as I am educating myself more about the upcoming labor, I'm learning a lot of natural ways of birthing and not having interventions. So when I expressed to my doctor that that's what I want a natural birth, I don't want any interventions because of all the great benefits they can have for my child, she kind of was like, okay, that's fine. And I remember the next visit, I had asked her, I forgot what the conversation was, but basically she was saying, oh, I have some tricks up my sleeves. And I think the way she said that was some tricks up my sleeve, like interventions. And the particular hospital I'm actually at right now has a really high cesarean rate. And I've heard that the doctors that I work with are not really into natural birthing. So I was very concerned about that because there's so many benefits and there's just so many studies about of just all the great benefits of having a natural birth. And one of the things that I was kind of concerned about too was when a baby is born, right away I wanted the baby to be have skin-to-skin contact for at least an hour or two. And because there's so many studies to show that that's great for breastfeeding and latching on and just bonding and just so many other benefits. And I feel like if the doctors know this information that having the child on skin-to-skin contact for more than an hour or two is so important, why don't they do it? Because I had a friend who actually birthed at the same hospital and she didn't get that benefit, but there was no complications. They just took the baby and, did the procedures of cleaning up or whatnot.
Have you considered the possibility of a water birth?
I saw that and I seen a lot of videos about that and it looks so amazing. It's just, I don't know. I think it's just, I think I'm really, I would love to do it, but I don't know if I can, because it's my first baby. I don't know how it's like. So it has a little nervous and unsureness to it as well. But I seen that and that's like ideally what I would love to do.
Mm-hmm.
But.
Well, one of the things that can really be a life changer for a woman in terms of reclaiming her power is to say, no, this is the kind of birth I'm going to have. And whatever it takes, and you do your own research, and you start to plug into communities that involve other women and families that have taken that step before you. And it can be a real life changer. It can be a real statement to yourself and to the universe about claiming your divine authority as a being and as this office of parenthood. So I really encourage you to see the opportunity here and to really move with it. And again, if you look historically, the birth of a new individual is a community event. It doesn't have to be just, if you had that kind of buffer I was talking about, it doesn't have to be like hiding out in a hospital. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be a celebration of life for the entire community if it's a life-supportive community. Wow, I can see now that obviously the idea of of a holistically based community wellness center would be really exciting. Boy, like we've come to the end of this hour, and I just want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
And it really, from the bottom of my heart, your willingness to be so vulnerable with me and all of us, I really appreciate. And I just want to say to the viewers that if this conversation has moved you and inspired you, and you want to raise your hand and say, yeah, it's time for me to take a stand, and I'd like to be involved in creating some new possibilities and a new space of possibility for mothers, especially in the area of health and wellness, and you'd like to tap into some really exciting things that are going on in terms of establishing holistic community-based wellness centers. I believe in the studio they're putting up something on the screen right now that has some contact information where you can get some more information. So thank you so much for being here today and being part of this episode of Doorway to Wellness, this very important episode on empowering mothers. And so we'll close with love and peace. Bye for now. So thank you so much.
Thank you.